podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you can please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother, Justice Rajee.
All right. So we are adding on today, and it is June, which is ostensibly Black Music Month. I don't know who the regulating or creative body who administers that and checks in on us to make sure that where everybody does it or anything. However, that's just them jokes. Ha ha.
Shout out to President Carter.
You know what I'm saying? And in the recent weeks, we had passing Peabo Bryson, Dexter Wansel, Foster Sylvers. You mentioned Rob Bass a few weeks ago that we didn't mention, and I thought it might be good to have a little conversation about some of those artists and Black Music Month, and Black music, as it were, and I think especially in this moment of dynamic change in America, and I think some ongoing conversations about the place of art in in culture broadly, specifically in some ways though, where music impacts art and creative expression impacts politics and government. Even given the we've had some conversations recently about the 250 and then the apparent 250 concert that was happening with a bunch of people signed to it. And then as it turned out, people maybe didn't know what they were signing up for and was like, oh, no, I don't want to be at that. That this reality that, music and other forms of art, but particularly music, can sometimes operate in these multiple places of importance, from your individual importance, as far as your experience, also to like a signifier of other values in the culture. And also we're going to have to say something, hopefully crack some jokes and laugh and smile and stuff. So it's not going to be like a sad, morbid conversation. But I wanted to start off, with the recent passing of Peabo Bryson and Dexter Wansel specifically, as artists from that I think most of us would associate either. We would associate with a DAS favorite.
DAS FM,
Philadelphia. And then, Dexter Wansel as a producer and a creator who, worked on, actually I was, one of those things you start hearing, shout out to our man Selecta, because I will put two of the tributes that he put together on the link. You may listen to a lot of music, but not necessarily read every credit to realize, oh, he was part of that. Oh, that person was a part of that. And then the other angle of which I would say I experienced personally, where like I think of Peabo in one light, and then there's a whole generation of people who Peabo Bryson is the dude that sung the Booty and the Beast song. Right. Like, which is not my reference point for Peabo Bryson at all. Right. So, I guess I say as an opener, what's something that came to mind for you with either one of those artists or Foster Sylvers, somewhere that you maybe had time?
Yeah, I actually got some. So one I want to start, guy, and I think it was a thank you for kind of breaching it in this way. One, I think about the power of like why in 1979 it would have been important to say this is Black Music Month, right? Like what was happening in America, right? Given the context. And then I think when we think about Black Music Month today and the successive mainstreaming of most of the musics in America, not all of them, but most of them had some Black influence from the beginning. We know that now. But then also what we call Black music in some ways being fully morphed into the mainstreaming of American society, where often we would think, generations before us, and even we were probably the last generation to think about like Black music as something that was over here. Like you went and found it. It was played on the Black station for Black people, right? Yeah. It was copied sometimes. And I want to honor the fact that sometimes what we call blue-eyed soul, when you look back, a lot of those artists, Hall and Oates, Steely Dan and others, they were not copying to steal and go on to bigger heights. They were actually deeply engaged in the music, right? But that kind of time when you like Black music was something you found, when you went and found a hip hop song, like it was over there. When it was a reggae song, like you had to go to one store that they had the records and they were selling jerk chicken in the back and tings and champagne colas and like you had a mixtape, right?
Right.
People can forget the lengths you had to go to find music, or you and I both know when you had to go and get the singles that they had dropped off at the store. And it was only when I came adult, I realized that they got the singles for free and sold them to us for $5 a wop, right? That was off the books money. Whatever. Shout out to Funko Mart, Sound of Market. So I just think about that in the context of Black music and in Black music in relationship to Black people. Because I don't ever think you can divorce Black music and Black people in the conditions, right? So that's just kind of the meta dialogue. Then I think specifically with Peabo Bryson, like you said, he had a long enough career that depending on where you saw him, you think different things. To my Aunt Shayna, he was the heartthrob. Like I remember she had posters of him up in the house. You know what I'm saying? Like Peabo Bryson, like is the one. Because again, I think we talked about this a little bit, but we can forget that the space between Michael Jackson, Off the Wall, and then Michael Jackson, Thriller, there were a lot of Black singers who were in the mix in that time, right? A lot of the heartthrobs, Teddy Pendergrass, the Peabo Brysons, right? There were a lot of people who were like the guys during that time. Rick James, right? 100%. And so Peabo Bryson was one of the guys who, sings Feel the Fire, which is not too many times I go against Teddy Pendergrass having the best verse of something. But he did not have the best version of Feel the Fire. Him and Severance.
Yeah, he didn't.
That's a Peabo Bryson song. Peabo Bryson owns that song. Oh, he owns that joint.
Don't try to play with my emotions.
Listen,
listen.
He laid that thing out for us flat. Then, so you have like that Peabo. So you have the heartthrob Peabo Bryson. Then you have like the singer Peabo Bryson. Then you have the Whole New World Peabo Bryson. Right, him and Regina Belle. I was actually just watching the Unsung on Regina Belle today,
right?
And like the role of them doing those ballads in the early to mid 90s, that catapults into national superstardom. Right, these were number one songs, right? And so but all while being a Black artist, right? So again, like I was talking about how Black music was like over here. And you had to go find it. It was in Word Up and Rap Up magazine and all the joints.
Yeah.
To then it's on a Disney movie. And I think that really reflects that kind of Black music continuum, right? In that trajectory. Dexter Wansel, obviously, where we're from, it's a unique thing because you hear the sound in the looping melodies and the symphonies of MFSB, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother Band for Philadelphia International. I always will posit that Philadelphia International does not get enough credit for how it changed the sound of not just Black music, but music as a whole. I think we talk about Motown. Philly International gets his credit, but I don't think it gets his credit for what it becomes later. Its influence on David Bowie, its influence with Luther Vandross singing, right? Its influence as soon after that, everything sounds like that and goes to the Patti LaBelle's. It goes to the late Teddy Pendergrasses, right? Like this stuff just doesn't die. And even related elements of people like Grover Washington Jr., who performed and did stuff with Dexter Wansel. Which then goes to stuff like Pieces of a Dream, right? Like, so I don't think, I just think in his role, his music with Gene Carn. So for anybody, like if you ever, folks go check out New Beginnings, which is the sample for Money, Power, Respect. right? Live from the planets and just the spacey shit that he was doing, right? Like just a musician, right? Like, but when you go check his discography, like how much he was truly involved with, and staying in Philadelphia too. Like that was the other thing. Those like the Philadelphia National guys were in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They didn't get the Motown LA move and so stuff like that. So that's what I think about him.
Yeah, I think it's like even when I went to, and I didn't get went to like do some scanning back over like Peabo's music, and then Dexter Wansel later, and I was actually listening, like I said, to the tribute mix that Selecta did, and the thing that struck me with Peabo is sort of the role, like the balladeer role, of like, and that as like which we still, I guess, like you could say in the 90s there were some male artists who like maybe, I guess, like went to go for that ring, the Eric Benets, the Brian McKnight, whose name be Mud in the street these days. People ain't got that bad. What's the somebody else was like on the, if you differentiate someone like Bilal, Sean Patterson, so like this, singing male lead who may do sort of romantic inclined, love music type songs and ballads that you were singing, and then they maybe dabble over here in something that's a little funkier, or a little more you could dance to. But I'll always think about the artists, especially the Black artists, in that transition that like found themselves in the like the end of the funk, the Motown era to like the 70s era, which I think in some ways you could make the argument, at least in terms of composed music, however you define it, especially for Black folks, maybe hit like a zenith, everything from Stevie Wonder to Parliament, Funkadelic, and Bootsy, and these people who we're speaking of currently, and that you get to the 80s, and we talked about this, I think, for when we talked about like Entume, and that like, not that you couldn't make good music no more, but in terms of what was the ascending arcs, like our artists that we listened to as people that was young folks that were coming into hip hop, we listened. Well, I always tell people two things. I didn't have kids music when I was a kid. I had DAS and the records that my mom played, right. and my dad played. For the time I had them. So I don't have this orientation as a kid to like, Sesame Street is probably about as kids music, when whatever was on PBS, and the occasional you got like the Fisher Price turntable set, and it came with like a record. It was like an ABC song or something, if I remember right. But I listened to the same music that the adults listen to for the most part. You know what I'm saying? And maybe some of the lyrics was over my head, or some lyrics they maybe kept away from you. But which sometimes I'll be one. I was like, man, I was about to mess with my mom yesterday. Be like, Mom, you might have been one of them permissive parents that the conservatives was talking about, because I realized I listened to a lot of funky music. As a kid, you know what I'm saying? You the one, Joyce. You the one. You're the one why they so mad. You let me listen to these different music. This like these adult themes, these love themes. And then, you find yourself at 88, 89, and maybe the folks of your age, of your arc, they're still with you, and they want to like go to like a cabaret. You're gonna sing some soul, some love songs. But the energy in the industry is like, the rappers. Or crossing over to the pop world, like really crossing over to the pop world. So like a whole new world, and these other types of songs that become part of like more mainstream culture, which I'm curious, and maybe it would be something if when I have more time to dig around to see if, I don't know if any like cover stories would have looked at it that way. Definitely probably not at the time. I think they just would go like, just kind of act like the past wasn't happening, where artists like that were considered Black music would not be really have access to the engineering and the structure of the major market, or be promoted in that way, at least not in the United States. Now, I don't know if, there was the wild, because, your revelation when you shared a couple weeks ago, coming back from over the way, that we have a relationship with Sade that the folks from where Sade from is not the same. You know what I'm saying? Because they was listening to some other stuff, and then they may have been into the stuff. I'm like, why would y'all like that? Like, and it'd be like, but you got to real. I think it's one of the things where you get the sense of seeing the world, and that other people are orienting. They're not coming from your, perspective and view, and us in our, robust American experience, and particularly the Black American experience, could, at times I have to admit that I'd be like, maybe I was in a structural bubble being Black in the Delaware Valley in the Northeast Corridor, that I'm like, oh, y'all was over, and with even the reality of, when I was a kid, on hip hop was not on the radio just yet. Like, it started coming on the radio when we was kids. So we heard, not just Black music on the, as if you bubble through another station, or you was in a public place, you'd hear some, the rock and roll music and classic rock and this other stuff, and Pink Floyd and whatever might be played somewhere or someone around you. But I think the value, like the presence that an artist like Peabo Bryson would have played in a community, that I would think there's some people that, again, their reference point is that pop crossover in making the ballads in the 90s, and not the, they may not have an auntie that would look at it like, oh, Peabo Bryson was like sexy singer man when I was graduating high school in 1982 or some shit.
Or the shirt open.
With the shirt open, I'm saying.
Some prototype of a Jerry curl. Like some prototype, the curl prototype, which wasn't a full curl. I think we had to give credit to all the hairstyles that were not full curls, but they were like curlish.
It was curl. It was like sheen. It was like
a sheen. It was like a
sheen on there.
It changed how your hair was, how it looked, but it wasn't a full curl.
It wasn't full curl. It wasn't full drip.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't spraying.
But then, I think, just to add on, I think that point is really important about the Sade thing, and we've talked about this a lot of times, is, for folks who are listening that know us, and if you've been listening long enough, I think you get us. Black folks in America sometimes suffer from nigga exceptionalism. And let me explain. Yeah. Because so much has happened to us in the wilderness of North America, right? Like, so much has happened to us. Sometimes we can't imagine that we didn't create everything. Right? There are times that Black folks, and especially I'm gonna argue younger Black folks of today, they cannot argue there was a time that someone created something that didn't have to do with Black folks in America. Like, except anime. Like, they know that.
Right, except anime. They agree.
Okay, that's Japanese. But like, the idea that Sade was tapping into jazz and American R&B and then did that, and then while we're listening to it, they're listening to Lovers Rock, right? Because that's what they're listening to, or they're listening to white versions of soul music, because in actual reggae balladeers, right? Like, they're listening to Gregory Isaacs, right? They're listening to Beres Hammond, and that's if you're in the 80s in London, that's your music. Or American music, but it ain't Sade, right? So we have a challenge with that, because again, our Black music orientation is always that it's always a thievery, not sharing, right? It's not a sharing conversation, and you can see it with the fight around Afro beats, in the whole conversation of what that is, and not understanding that there's been a constant interaction of the Black Atlantic, particularly, right, between the Caribbean, North America, and England, and Europe broadly, but England particularly, as far as ideas, right? The other part that I think you brought up that I do ponder is this idea that if you were like a jazz artist in the 70s, and people wanted to like sit down and listen to you play jazz, and then next thing you know, people didn't want to listen to you play jazz. They wanted to hear you play Michael Jackson. You didn't want to hear you play the jazz interpretation of Michael Jackson, right? Or they wanted to hear you play the jazz interpretation of Jeffrey Osborne, right? I was listening to Grover Washington. He did a version of Can't Help It for Michael Jackson, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, you were Grover Washington, but you had to play some shit that people wanted to hear. We saw that again in the interpretation of hip hop, right? Because it went from, yo, you love the hardcore, rough, rugged, and raw. And then people were like, I want to dance. Right? And then we said, that's fake shit, right? But all those other artists who we call classic had to evolve. It evolved because it is according to taste. I mean, you could go super hard. You could go to Europe where people kind of kept that music in a bubble. But in America, in Black folks, we evolved. Shifts, tastes were changing, right? Tastes were shifting. And so, to your point, I think about this idea of in and out, the modernity versus classic. That even comes up in this Jay-Z Drake conversation. Like, it constantly comes up in Black music. Of like, no, y'all don't know real hip hop. Listen to State Property. Right? Like, even the idea, like I had watched it again, and I watched the power of listening to songs that came out 23 years ago, and a certain segment of the internet going crazy about songs 23 years ago, that there were some segments of the population then who didn't like Beanie Siegel because he said, I fuck around, make your mom go through it. I'm a beast. Yeah. Right? Like Bean say some stuff that veers on the like deeply sociopathic. Like, I think if we're honest, I'm a single fan. But if you Beans.
No, I totally endorse that. There's things in some of Bean's music that's like, yo, like damn. Like, all right. That's where we're at, huh? Like,
we both know enough to know that was actually the state of activity. That was the state of affairs at that moment. Like, it wasn't. He wasn't making it up.
Yeah, he wasn't lying. That's a hard pill to swallow.
You see what I'm saying? So, but people will call that real hip hop, and then call Drake not real, right?
Mm-hmm.
There will be a time that people will be like, "Yo, man, remember we had Drake? Man, just raps." He just rapped. He just rapped. He rapped and he sang. Right? He was keeping it real about his emotions. Right? And so I'm just saying that I think it's always this interplay of those things. And I think that Dexter Wansel moving from like full jazz to then going to what we understood as growing up as like that jazz R&B sound that gets played at brunches and gets played when you on the highway going from one place to another and you're in the back of the car. Right? Like, that's what we grew up hearing. But it still was a modernity classic conversation that artists were negotiating. So I just say that to feel like I understand a little more now as in our big old age, as they say, about what they were dealing with. The last person, well, not the last person, but the other person I want to bring up in this conversation is actually Foster Sylvers in Misdemeanor. Hot take here. I think for a minute, the Sylvers were kicking the Jacksons' ass. I think the Sylvers for a minute were doing some of the most complex, complicated, soulful music that was out there. It may have been because they just had one producer who's also in the family. Because I sometimes think about the DeBarges and where that went, right? I think also you had the singer that had the same kind of voice, and you could argue might have had even a better voice than Michael Jackson. I know it sounds what people go trigger, but listen to Foster Sylvers when you get a chance. Misdemeanors, and you can imagine him dancing. He didn't dance as good as Michael Jackson though either, and he wasn't on Motown. So, there's that. But I just think about the Sylvers, and me and your good brother Malice Devon. We stay riding around late nights listening to the Sylvers as loud as you could possibly play it through the ghetto. And you develop a different relationship to the Sylvers when you listen to it late at night, man. But I think about them in the sense of the other part of this, and I'll please add on. The Jacksons come out. Boom, it's a family thing. It's 5 kids. They do things. Kids spin around and shit, right? So then people are like, who else got kids who spin around and dance and shit and sing? Oh, the Sylvers. Some other complicated history of a family and a dad that's super hard on the family, like the Barges. Like it keeps happening. Yeah. But then they come out and it's like, but you're not on Motown. You don't have Berry Gordy. Diana Ross is not your friend, right? Like, in amazing music, sometimes if you didn't hear the samples from that Dr. Dre did Misdemeanor for Funky Enough, shout out to DOC, a lot of people may not have heard or known where that Foster Sylvers was. So it's also like there's that relationship of talent and like passion and skill to commerce, right? And so I just wanted to share like kind of that part of that conversation.
Well, I think it's a thing to consider. The thing about human creativity is we can convince ourselves that like a person, like that there's someone else who can sing. Right? So like the person we know that can sing real good and we want to be, that's the best person ever. No one else has any chance of singing as well as that person.
Right.
And then to go like, well, maybe somebody else could sing as well as that person becomes a like you're saying something bad about the person who did this amazing creative thing. Where you're saying, no, I'm just accepting that there's like billions of us, and it's reasonable if one of us could do something really good. It's probably another one.
Exactly.
It's probably somebody else, no matter how good you're at it.
Statistically, if you can do it, there's probably somebody else who can do it too.
There's another one around here that might be good, right? But also then becomes the like, if someone, the Jackson 5 penetrates, they're on the Motown machine, they penetrate the stratosphere and the structural, divide in terms of a market and world you can go into, and they become the group everyone knows. They become the how you say, like the big group that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of or can enjoy. They get they get too old to be 5, and they just start recalling the Jacksons, which I in my mind it all was the same. But I started looking at records that I had as a kid, and I was like, how did I miss that the Jacksons 5 became the Jacksons? In my mind, it was the same. One, I was not born. I was born in 76. I was a baby, so it's not like I knew what the hell was going on. Like they was already the Jacksons by the time I was on planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? In terms of what would be on the label. You know what I mean? But you get to then that like good music is something that people do, is something that's created. So you have like the Sylvers who could make all this amazing soulful music and understand that there was an audience that was listening to that music, that was looking for that music. There were other labels and businesses that were trying to, again, sell records and break into markets and to expand and to share the music. And there was, there was capacity for people to tour and to go and do shows, maybe not as much money. I'm sure that there's somebody else, the Foster Sylvers, one of the Sylvers. Patrice Rushen was involved with the Sylvers, wasn't she, in some way? I think.
Well, Leon Sylvers went on to produce the song that was the sample for Lucchini and Camp Low. Right. So Leon was the older brother. He was the producer that went on to like do other stuff. So that also the Sylvers family tree is connected to like a lot of other Black music. Leon Sylvers. The rest of them, again, record companies, people get jerked. They hit hard times.
Gotcha. It's the like exit path of or your entry path, like because there's so much music that's been created. So like even like Dexter Wansel has like 870 something credits. If you go on his Discogs, it's like, I'm saying, it's so much stuff that people are a part of. And then I think how you say, as a recovering music person who made people who made music at one point in our lives in a structural way, I think thinking about like how much it does, if you want to keep making music, it helps to have like a place to go make music, like the apparatus, like the structural apparatus of like, We have access to musicians and we have a producer place. And like any day of the week, I can go down to this studio and like work on my musical idea or notions. And so with that, that becomes like, yeah, if you can't either be a working musician or you're not a part of a label that does actually sell some records, so that then that person can keep being somewhere in the lab and they're like their whole day can be around music, not like I be music, but you know, I gotta go out here and bust 2 shifts on Selecta, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm gonna do some other stuff, but I'll be there on Saturday. You know what I'm saying? Like creatively that changes the nature of like what someone creates and how they approach their production. And it's a very like interesting phenomenon to have the degree that, and I was telling my mom about this earlier, because you know our generation, especially those who really got into like hip hop, so maybe not just listen, but really got into it. You know, you start to go back and go like, oh, I know that song. It's like you understood what they're doing, and so then you get, you know, you got a DJ friend, you got a dope DJ to do something like I'm gonna get the original sample and do this other stuff. Like so, there's a re-engagement with a music that's from 15, 20, and 20 years before our like time, so to speak, as young adults. That then makes us having an affinity and a connection and relationship with artists that would not necessarily been our contemporaries, so to speak, right? They're not they're not our youth artists. They're not the artists. They weren't what was on the radio, at least not all the time. Maybe on a certain mix, or maybe on the the local college radio or PBS station or jazz station if you had one, right? Where like somebody like it's the Sunday Slip with John, and I'm doing all like you know what I'm saying. I'm doing all 70s
Storm model, right?
Yeah.
The Quiet Storm model, which fundamentally, comes out of DC, comes out of WHUR, right? Which takes our music that before didn't have a space where you put it all together. It's just black music and you put all the soul music together, and then now it's a whole thing. Now it's called the Quiet Storm, right? And it's on the radio, and it comes on 10 o'clock at night. For everybody, everywhere. Which, if you think about it, is an amazing concept that a guy, created, the Quiet Storm concept on college radio. Right? Like it wasn't like on a big station. It was like literally like, oh, we're on WHUR. We created something. And then because of DC, everybody listens to it. Smokey Robinson comes out with the actual song. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, everyone in America has it, to the point where we all thought it started in the cities that we were from.
Right. We thought we was the only ones that
we thought WDS was the only place in the world to have it. And I'm gonna tell you, I thought it until my pop and Blue, we would go to DC and we would like go down south, and they would always listen to what they would like. It was the original Quiet Storm when we were going through DC. So we would listen to whatever was on because they was, they understood the context of it started in DC and came up, across the country. And shout out to Melvin Lindsay, is the brother that created it for WHUR. Because again, I think names like that get lost in the bigger picture. Another piece just I wanted to share was, I looked on Al Gore's internet, right? And for Leon Silver. Leon Silver produced Before I Let You Go for Blackstreet. Yes. He wrote and produced half of that song for Blackstreet in 1995. That's how long his career went from after producing for his family. The Sylvers produced their last album together in 1974.
Oh, wow.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like, all three of the people we mentioned represent these really interesting arcs in black music. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think when you bring it together, it should have people appreciate the complexities of how we live through black music. And I think how you and I and others in our age range live through black music, and then thinking about, frankly, for our children and how they're living through black music, and how our grandchildren will live through and frame Black music because you have all access to it at any moment you ever want it. There's nothing you can't find. But at the same time, why would you go find it? Unless the algorithm pushes it on you. So we were our own algorithm, right? Like, you would go down to the record store. What was the boy name that was the Q102 DJ back in the day?
Jay Ski.
Yeah, World's Finest.
The turntable. The turntable record. Shout out the turntable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
try to find, get all the
we knew because they would be shouting y'all out. When we was kids, they'd be shouting, shout out to Willard World. You know what I mean? To me, we talked about this often, but y'all was like this far off land of pretty girls and, you know what I'm saying? Gas that was cheaper. You know what I mean? Because that's what it meant to us.
Yeah. Gas was cheaper. and the girls were pretty. I'm keeping
pretty girls, far off and cheaper gas. But you knew you had to go in and find music. You'd be like, yo, what's the new stuff coming out? They'd be like, oh man, yeah, you gotta hear this new group. They did this. They're about to drop with this artist. And so your curiosity was the algorithm, right? What you told your peers created the algorithm. And we all had one homie who was super into music. Like, he was in sports, but then one homie was like super like.
Yeah, it was one dude who was like knee waist deep. It like, that's this. Look, you come out of the house, I'm gonna play this record for you.
I got this new. I never forget. I went down and I bought the Def Jam sampler again. They were supposed to give it to me, but they sold it to me. Damn it! It was supposed to be free. Sound of Market, but anyway.
They supposed to throw that in the bag with your other music.
It was like this. We got a sampler, new stuff, $5. Okay, cool. Here. On this sampler was Boss, Onyx, and Redman. And for me, it totally changed how I heard hip hop after that. Because it was like, wait, this girl's rapping, and like she was on the what's the group? Oh man, I don't want to sing the music. Oh man. B Better Have My Money song. I forget the name, but
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to, we're older. I don't want to go into the litany of verses I have memorized.
Yeah.
And Boss was on that album. Then the Onyx song, before anyone heard it, was on this sampler. And it was like, take him up, take him on there. Show the ball, hey. One gun, two gun, three. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like, who creates music that sounds like this? Like, violence happens outside. It doesn't happen on my music.
Like in the track, like on the actual joint I'm listening to, it's a bit of something.
Selling drugs and stealing from people. They don't get killed on the record. Public Enemy's on the record. Big Daddy Kane. G-Rap was the closest to that, right? But you didn't take it like, yo, G-Rap is a gangster. You just was like, okay. And then it was the hardcore verse from Redman on NPMD's album. And Blow Your Mind.
Oh, okay.
That was the two songs on there. It was a hardcore verse and Blow Your Mind.
That's interesting.
And so, again, the algorithm was I go to the record store and say, what y'all got new? Right? And then that's what gets me the shift. That's what allows me to go to school and like, yo, listen to this. That's what allowed, we listen to KDU or PRB, right? Let me get KDU and the Drexel WPRB in Princeton. And so we had an algorithm. It was called curiosity. It was called going outside. It was called talking to people. And now, I just don't know what that's going to look like for our generations to come.
That opens up because I did want to bring up. I had shared a video with you, and I think it's her name's the creator's Chloe Hilliard, and it was first the news to me, and I've been noticing like print magazines coming back because I didn't realize how much like print magazines because of COVID like had to kind of stop sharing them, like magazines stopped like just as a whole, and but like specifically she was talking about she was sharing. I shared it with you like the like vibe music coming back and it I think our time of like we remember when the Source dude had the commercial on Philly 57, you know what I'm saying, to get you to buy a copy of the source. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know some of y'all don't know nothing about that. You know what I'm saying? But we was there. Like the source, he was like, you know what I'm saying? The music was it Mike? Was it
Mike
Mike
Elliott,
something?
you know what?
Mike Elliott. Yeah, Mike Elliott. And we got the magazine, and it was, and like, so this media that then became a part of the conversation of how you would learn about other music. And then, then Vibe was Quincy Jones's play, in that world. That, and she mentions, if you watch the 3 different videos she makes about it, she was one of the editor at her time there. Like he sold the magazine in 2006, and the reason it's relevant, like I'm thinking about it at this moment creatively, is like, we had a dear friend of ours who was right for Stress magazine when that was being published, Rap Pages.
Absolutely.
I think there's another. So magazines outside of the like Word Up.
I mean,
what are you phase of things?
I think you had the Source, you had Source, you had Stress, you had Rap Pages.
There's something else. There's another.
There was another one, not Rat Bastard, although that was kind of like the Echo one that they started doing. But yeah, you had the West Coast ones. You had Murder Dog, right? Like at 4080.
Murder Dog.
Because again, you had those East Coast magazines that only already talk about the East Coast, and then you had this burgeoning world of other Black expression that didn't have a place in the Source, because it's important to remember that the Source was started with a guy from Boston and a guy from Philly on the campus of Harvard University. Right? And that's not to change any of that story. It's just to say that's where it happened at, right? And they were lovers of the art and lovers of the music, and that's where it had an East Coast bias from its orientation, right? Like from its genesis. But yeah, so then you got the 4080s, you got the Murder Dogs, you got the other joints that were like, yo, let's talk about what Black music looks like. That totally only you could find, again, in the algorithm. You can only find that in a deep hip hop store. Like,
oh yeah, you wouldn't find those didn't cross over. That wasn't in the Barnes and Nobles, and the Borders, and what's the other bookstore?
Borders.
You know what I'm saying? Like chains, the Borders, Barnes and Nobles. There was it what's the name, Bookseller or something? But they didn't do magazines.
No, they do magazines.
One used to be in the malls. And I think that's important, and I bring it up because like this new rendition of Vibe, like, it sounds like it intends to have some sense that it's connected to the culture, right? But then like the culture is no longer like the culture was a code word for Black people, and it's no longer that, right? And I think about when sort of the conversation, like the blog era of the like mid 2000s to the to the I guess still, I don't know if it's still not in the blog era, like in some other just writing era. I don't know if the way that you would have I think we're in a place now, I think maybe with a lot of written culture, is that it's the mix of the podcast, audio, video medium, deeper dive, maybe in a magazine, maybe in a Substack, maybe in a feature in some other publication about an artist, like the GQ thing with Jay-Z earlier this year, or the the piece that's on a but it's not in the place where it was like discovery. It's more like someone who's already ascended to a place of notoriety, and now we're going to maybe tell you more in a largely distributed place. And then again, it's not just a written piece. And I bring that up just from the thought of like, there are people, because our generation now are people that not all of us, and everybody, everybody's fine looking at everybody's pocket, but like most of us, at least I would say more people of our generation are old enough that we can pay for stuff. And so we may see like, oh, Vibe's coming back. I used to read Vibe when I was, do whatever. I'm going to start buying Vibe because it's going to tell me about the music that I like. And then like, maybe it will, maybe it will be discovery. Maybe it won't. Right. Like if for the amount of us who, like I said, I definitely depend on now, like, happenstance, me going on, one of my, I've moved off of Spotify and just to Apple Music at the moment. And from my own library and to the degree, and I just gotta say this because I don't know what somewhere in there, something edited a whole bunch of my songs and took the words out that I'm all right hearing. And I don't like that. I got to fix it because it gets on my nerves when I listen to, even if it's how you say, it was a different time. I would say to like my show, like, it's different times, some different things going on. That's probably not cool that they said that. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't want you to say that these days, but I don't want y'all scratching it out.
Right, like it's not that it didn't exist. So
yeah,
I got a hot take.
Go for it.
The culture is bullshit. Because culture without community and connection doesn't exist. Any idea of culture is implicit that people have a connection in a relationship. So when we said culture, the culture, there was a time where people knew what that meant. Again, going back to black music, right? Like when someone plays a song, and guess what? Only people in Philadelphia know the song. Only people from New York know the song. Only people from Boston know the song. Only people from down south know the song. Only house music fans know the song. Largely black, maybe not exclusively black, brown, and deep music fans, right?
Yeah, they in the
now this culture shit is used to talk about some shared stuff that I don't think no one ever checked in to say what we share.
Yeah, I don't know if we share.
I like Drake. I like Drake when he do melodies. I don't like when he act tough, as Kendrick would say. Right? Like, because I can appreciate Drake being a Canadian with a Southern father that was a musician who created underground hip hop. His favorite group was Little Brother. And then he's singing because of Fonte. And again, that's another part nobody wants to talk about. The reason he feels like he can sing and rap is because of Fonte from Little Brother. And Love the Clips, which has its own irony, own Shakespearean irony to it.
Right, yeah, that's pretty.
So if you do that and you're a guy that does that and you produce quality music from your experience and you spin in the Jamaican influence of Canada and you can cross the Atlantic differently to connect with the London brothers, right? I think that is a beautiful thing, right? That is beautiful. And that's part of the culture. But the idea that Drake is better because he sells more records than Jay-Z or Lil Wayne, or I don't give a damn who it is, Young Boy NBA, that's not the culture. That's not a connection other than the fact that all y'all heard this at the same time because of commerce. Right. And it's no relationship. And so I just want to put it as a hot take that what we're calling the culture is bullshit and we're being used by people to talk about connection and relationship. That is actually watering down the idea when black folks actually have culture. That's that. Another part of this, just to your point, is this idea of the print world. Because the interesting thing, and we've discussed this before, is that in some ways the print world is very robust. Mm-hmm. It's just very specific. Shout out to Monocle magazine. Who have created a burgeoning, flourishing industry of magazines that cost $25, right? And throw events in far off places that they charge you $2,000 just to come to. They ain't give you nothing free. You ain't ate. You ain't did nothing. They said it's $2,000 for you to come. You pay for your own shit to get here. You buy your own champagne. And they are a flourishing, successful business structure. W.M. Brown, there's a brother that runs Guare that runs a company named No Chaser, right? Like there are successful print industries. So when people like the magazine world is dead, no, the magazine world's not dead. The magazine world is dead of selling everybody everything. So it'll be interesting to see where Vibe takes its path. Like you can't be everything to everybody. You actually have to matter deeply to a segment of the world and dig into that. Right. So if it's new music, if it's new culture, like a part of this, like you can't separate it from long form journalism, which is the other part of this conversation we're having about curiosity. I thought about when you were talking about like the challenges of black music in the 80s. And you know where you would have read about that? The Village Voice.
Yeah.
Because brothers and sisters, it's important to note this, brothers and sisters were writing long-form journalism about music. They were writing long-form journalism about crack. They were writing. And so I just think if you're going to do a magazine that's not actually going to go in depth into things that you don't know about people, then it should just be on the internet. Right? Because if it's going to be 3 minutes to read, the hell am I paying $30 for? Right? Like I paid $30 for good pictures and shit. Like this is a magazine I got about coffee. It's called Solo. It's like right here. Like I paid legit because it's beautiful. This shit is gorgeous. Like, you know what I mean? It's stuff here. It's pictures. Shit. Anyway. So like I don't pay for that because it's a 2-minute article.
Right. Like you should really go check out his record.
Yeah, like no.
Like nah, like tell me, give me something more.
Yeah,
like give me something.
Why? What did he say? Like, what did she say? What does she write about? Where does she come from that I should be interested? Because in the attention economy, we don't have a lot of it. So if you tell me to be interested in something, you can't just tell me for the culture. You can't tell me someone's for the culture. Yep, because my culture and your culture really might not be the same, other than the fact that we share a skin tone, and some of us may have had some other experiences. So I think it's interesting in the context, because again, I don't think you separate the burgeoning space of the source of those things, of long form journalism, of Vibe, of what Quincy Jones was trying to do to give a global sense of black music, right? His genius, I think, can be underestimated, but like Quincy Jones was giving us something unique. It wasn't just hip hop. It was R&B. It was jazz. And so, you know, right on to Vibe if they're doing something that I want to read. If not, right on to them and I just won't read it, and I'll keep reading these other $40 magazines. That come out twice a year too. That's the other crazy thing. Like I'll get one.
Well, it's an interesting motto. You know what I mean? And I guess the thing I think that I guess would be most significant about this, just for the sake of this conversation today, is like there is something to the documentation of the mind state of a moment, and the very interesting Instagram channel that brings up is the cat that does like old Village Voices and like looks through what concerts and shows and things were happening like on a date. That's like, yo, I wouldn't want to go to that. Right. And it exhibits a couple things. One, it shows the actually like the value of a media, a vehicle that does capture where the arts and culture, in this particular, like this, the music and entertainment in a city is. It also highlights how much New York City is not like wherever you live.
Oh yeah.
Just, you know, no disrespect to people, but you know, we got this weird thing in our society where we just think all cities are like, it's a city. It's like every big city is like a big city. And I contend, and you know, there's cities, and then there's bigger cities, and then there's big cities. There's big international cities, and your city, which may be a great city, and it is not the same as that place, right? And the cultural relevance and the echo rings of like what it means to be there or be in that place, and from a creating music, entertainment, arts is also a relationship between some populace that can engage with the artist. You know, it doesn't need to necessarily at the level of like a crass consumerism where it's just like, I just want to sell to as many people as possible. But even at a micro level, that's like this space can nurture, you know, somebody can be a working musician or can be a working,
absolutely,
you know, has a working stand-up scene, has a working acting and stage performing scene. And so like, you know, it's just something I noodle on around again also, and I think relevance to the larger thing that we talk about is the filtering out of ideas that, you know, the thing that the internet to me has revealed over time is that it is a great repository of information, especially if you're looking for a thing. But if you're not necessarily looking for a thing, it hides everything. Right.
Damn.
Like I mean, like, yeah, it's out there, but you can't see it. You may not there's not a lot of ways to accidentally rub up against it. Even if you're doom scrolling on one of these apps, like, you sometimes get interesting nuggets and sometimes something new, and it's nice, it's something cool, you never see it again. And you can't remember what it was. It's hard for you to search for it. And you're
I had to start writing down the names of pages that show up and never show up again. Because some of these pages never show up again on Instagram. Like I'll never see them again. And like I have to write them down so I can go back to them. Because even if I follow it, it's not going to come back on the algorithm. Like I have to go find it. To your point, it's amazing. It will show you something new, but it's hiding everything else. Damn.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm just curious, like how. So the break between as a person encouraging people to be intentional to like, go make sure you gotta, like I tell Black folks that move to Oregon, hey man, you might have to go outside and do a little work on your Black hangouts in a way that if you're from somewhere else that you haven't realized you just exist in a plurality of Black, that you just go outside and be Black people there. And
right, you might fall into Black shit. Right.
Yeah, you just showed up and it's 30, 40, 50%, 100, 90% of the people was Black at the place you went to eat or the bar you like or the coffee shop you enjoy. You know what I'm saying? Or not so to the absence of Blackness that you felt left out. Where sometimes here, and it's nobody, sorted history removed, there are spots where you look up and you're like, I am the only Black person in this room. That was not my goal today.
Listen, Pittsburgh is 24%. How did that happen? Y'all are probably what, 8% Black, 9% Black?
Like, yeah, according to I think it's like 6 to 8%. According to the census, it's like 3 to 4%. I think it's a little, I think
okay, let's land on your number and say 6%, 7%. Pittsburgh is 24% Black in the city, 13% in the county. There are places I can go and like 1 or 2 Black people are in there. And it's one neighborhood away from where there's a whole bunch of Black people.
Yeah, there's Black everybody over there.
Everybody over there is Black. And I'm in a restaurant and it's nobody Black. So I agree with you. And again, I think for folks who are listening, it kind of compels to talk about what does it mean to regain your curiosity, not just online, right? Like go check the music and then check the people, right? Like I would love to talk about this next week because, at 9:00 EST, the Earth, Wind and Fire documentary is coming on.
Yeah, that's right. That's coming on today.
I'm 15 minutes late. My fault. That was real time, y'all. Parts of that was real.
Yeah, I forgot that was coming on today, so I need to get they paged me to finish dinner too. So in any event,
y'all are here.
Let's make sure. Real time. This is the real art. See, this is the real. All right, so with that, I'm gonna go figure out what channel if I can start watching the Where to Find documentary now or not, because I think I'll figure that out. And I think we can.
No, thank you. Thank you, God, because I think you this shows and indicates that even if you think something is simple about Black people, it's never quite as simple as you think.
Absolutely. All right, so with that, I say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, Majestic. Good Brothers is housed and lives here on the Asher Oldhead podcast feed. And you can support the podcast by rating, subscribing, and sharing wherever you listen. You can also support by searching Justice Rajee on Patreon and becoming a patron. You can also support by going to askyouroldhead.com and go to the shop and purchase a t-shirt or a concept that you may find there in the shop. Thank you for your support. And yeah, that's all I got today. So enjoy the music, and we'll definitely be discussing more as the month moves forward, as well as other things that are going on. So with that, I say peace.